Hello, my friend. Today I thought I would make a video about the number one question that I get and answering that question, which is how do you source? Where do you source? In order to answer this question, I'm going to give you a bunch of additional context so that I can answer the real question, which is how can you source and how can you source better? The one word that I would use to describe my sourcing technique nowadays is omnipresence. So when people ask me, hey, where do you source? They're only asking for one place. And in reality, I have worked with so many different people. I've worked with so many different sizes of business. It's a variation, it's a mix of sources. So I'm going to go through those now. I have worked with flea market sellers. I've worked with smaller sellers. I've worked with sellers that don't sell in my category. I've worked with exporters. I've worked with rag houses. I've gone to hundreds of thrift stores. I've gone to flea markets overseas. I've gone to other countries, like I went to, Rose Bowl in LA. I've been to JJ's Market in Bangkok. In Japan, I actually went to one, it was a self-serve thrift store. So everything was a flat price, and at the end, you count out your tickets and then you pay for it and you put the cash in the machine. So that was really cool. I say all of this to say, the longer that you are in the industry, the more routes of sourcing you're going to pick up. And ideally, in order to make your business more anti-fragile, in other words, more sturdy, more durable, you do want to be sourcing from multiple sources at the same time. So the way to work with the bigger players, the exporters, the rag houses, the bigger thrift stores, is to actually approach it from the business to business perspective. This is where having basic business nous, basic business tact is going to go a long way. The major problem I see with smaller sellers trying to pitch themselves in order to set up these relationships is that you fundamentally don't represent enough on their balance sheet to be valuable to them. For example, if I'm wanting to purchase from a business that does tonnage, it makes no sense for me to go in and say, hey, I'll buy, 10 t-shirts from you. It's just not valuable enough to them for them to say yes. On the other hand, if you are able to spend hundreds, thousands a month, this is when you become more valuable and you start to represent cash flow to that business. Really, it's just fundamental B2B, which is business to business. And in order to cultivate those relationships, you need to be doing three things. You need to be consistent, you need to show up with a good attitude, and you need to be easy to deal with. Business isn't about who you know. Business is about who knows you, likes you, and wants to see you win. So ultimately, if you want to partner with bigger businesses than yourself, then you need to be doing these things and you need to be nailing the fundamentals. So the short version of answering the question, where do I source from? I source from everywhere that has used clothing. Doesn't matter whether it's a big business, a retail storefront, or an individual, I source from every single place I can that sells used clothing. Now, hopefully to make this video more valuable to you, I thought now I'd share some of my best tips on sourcing. My number one tip for sourcing is going to be volume. You need to be going to way more stores. I think the biggest problem that people have when they go sourcing is they show up to 2, 3, 5, 10 stores and then complain that they haven't found anything good. When in reality, you need to be aiming for 100 stores. If you can do 100 stores in a week, even if you could do 50 stores in a week, you will do way better than everybody else who is only going to 10 or less stores. The reason why this works is you are sorting through much higher volumes of clothing, and as a result, you are able to come across more quality. The second tip I have for sourcing is actually distance. So going further than everybody else, even if that means driving, an hour, 2, 5 hours, even experimenting with hopping on a plane and flying somewhere else. A lot of people like to limit themselves by only going to the places near to them out of convenience. But the number one key that I can give you is hard sourcing means easy selling. But if you want the easy route for sourcing, then you may end up with a hard time selling. In other words, picking up a bunch of items that may never sell for cheap, then you're probably going to have a hard time selling. Another tip I have for you is reputation. So this doesn't mean that you need to post content. However, I will say that telling people what you do, whether it's in your town, whether it's in your city, telling people what you do is going to create opportunities for you. The other part of telling people what you do is if the goal is sourcing, it would be to tell them what I'm actually looking for. An important part of this is actually having a document, having a piece of paper, having a business card with a list of the items that you buy. If people know who you are, they like you, they know what you do, and they know what you're looking for, then you're going to have a much easier time sourcing those items. My fourth tip is local advantage. What does this mean? Essentially, it means that you want to focus on items that are easy for you to source in your region, in your town. A common mistake I see is people seeing that I sell clothing and then immediately assuming that clothing is what they should sell. When in reality, focusing on your local advantage, focusing on the things that are in your area already may actually be a better route to take your business. Clothing may actually not be your niche. Maybe your niche is recycled electronics. Maybe your niche is used laptops because you have a relationship with a local computer guy. The more that you can cultivate and actually be aware and recognize your local advantage, the easier sourcing is going to be for you. Focusing on this local advantage means that you can custom build your business to suit the things that are already accessible to you. Sometimes it's as simple as recognizing that the local thrift stores are underpricing the DVDs. Maybe they're underpricing the books. These are definitely niches that we can explore. So just because you see me or you see somebody else doing well with clothing doesn't necessarily mean that you have to sell clothing as well. Complementary sourcing or symbiotic sourcing. In nature, there are certain animals that naturally work together, even though they're not the same species. To make this one simple to understand, complementary sourcing or symbiotic sourcing basically means partnering up with somebody that understands what you do or even does what you do, but doesn't sell the same items. For example, if I'm a men's clothing seller, it might be wise for me to partner up with a women's clothing seller. It's likely that this person is already coming across a lot of the stuff that I want, but they're not buying it because it's not their niche. So if I'm able to partner with them, and maybe it means I pay them or I actually source women's clothing for them, then I would create a symbiotic relationship in which we can help each other win. This also can work extremely well if you just partnered with somebody who is in a completely different niche to you, but they're actually going to the same places. For example, if I'm an electronics seller and I'm always showing up to the same flea market that you do, but you're looking for clothing, it might be worth introducing myself and having that conversation. My final sourcing tip would be to partner with people that don't care about the items that you're selling. Sometimes it's worth speaking to the storage unit guys. Sometimes it's worth speaking to the local garbage guys. These are the people that are coming across lots of stuff that they simply throw out or want to get rid of. Sometimes the stock that I want is actually more of a nuisance for them, so by buying those items, I'm solving a problem for them. I guess just to finish off this video, I know when people ask, hey, where do you source? How do you source? What do you source? What they're actually asking is, hey, how do I get the stuff for me so that I can make money? Which is totally understandable because I understand that's how I was in the beginning. If you forget everything I've said in the last few minutes and only have one key takeaway from the video, I want it to be this. The way to fix your sourcing problem is to build more relationships. Sourcing problems have nothing to do with the stuff and everything to do with people. A lot of people love to overemphasize looking for the items when you should actually be looking for the relationships. What's worked for me has been looking at creating relationships for the long term. So instead of the $10 win here, $20 win here, I'm actually looking at this potential relationship as $10,000 of future profit, of $100,000 of future profit, $100,000 of future profit, even $1 million of future profit. The way to fix the sourcing problem is to create more conversations, is to create more relationships. And look, you don't have to be on social media or make content like I am right now. I had sold tens of thousands of items before I even started speaking about my business on social media. What I will say is that there is a lot of value in asking for somebody's name, exchanging contact information, letting them know exactly what you're looking for, how much you buy it for usually, and then building that relationship from there. And then when it comes to a lot of the business to business, there's nothing that's going to replace going and meeting them in person. You know, we can email, call, message on social media all we like, but nothing is going to replace that human to human connection. So to summarize, you want to do more volume, you want to go to more stores. For distance, you want to go further than everybody else. 3, reputation, build that reputation, tell people what you do. You don't have to be on social media, just start introducing yourself. Complementary/symbiotic. So start speaking with people that do something similar to you. Or maybe this person does exactly what you do, but they're in a different town, city, or country. And lastly, people that come across the stuff that you want, but they don't really care about it. Maybe you actually represent solving a problem for them. So the stuff you're after is actually their problem stock, and you buying it actually makes their life better. So just to close this one out, something that is important to think about is how you're going to store the items that you buy. Don't think about storage after the fact. Think about storage before. I've made a video on my storage system already. I'll put a link to that in the bio. I've also released a 30 lessons from 30,000 sales document, which I'll also put a link to below. That's free. That is me basically summarizing a lot of the things that I've learned from practical experience and putting that all into one place, one source of information, so that it's valuable to me. Mainly, it was a lot of reflection, but I've externalized it so that it can be valuable to other people. So thank you very much for watching. I hope this video helps you. I'm Kiddo, and I'll see you on the next one.